All right, today we need to talk about Nintendo Switch 2 and the potential launch time of this console, because a new report is making the rounds online suggesting from a former Nintendo of America employee that we may know the launch month of the console. And I would like to use this opportunity to remind you all that we probably do, due to leaks directly from the source that said ahead of time the date that the reveal trailer would go live and what they had heard around the potential launch timing of the console. It also makes a lot of sense if you look at the hands-on experience Nintendo events that they are holding for Switch 2 and kind of what that calendar looks like and why it's probably around the end of the time of a lot of those showcases. And besides that, we just have history to go off of where you can actually look at what Nintendo has revealed to us so far with the first look trailer and the date for the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct actually lining up almost exactly with how they marketed Switch 1. So I think the blowout Nintendo Switch 2 Direct presentation will actually tell us a little bit of a loose timeline of when to expect the console to actually be available on retail store shelves. But if none of those other sources were convincing to you at this point in time, we do have yet another name to look at today that, as a former Nintendo employee, is adding in their 2 cents and also putting to bed maybe some speculation that these retailers actually currently know what the price point and or launch date of this unreleased piece of Nintendo hardware might actually be. So we're gonna get on the same page with all of this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick it off by hopping right over to VGC, where you can see their detailed typed up article with exactly what was said from the former Nintendo of America employee. Former Nintendo employee predicts June Switch 2 release, says retailers know nothing. Nintendo Switch 2 will definitely release before the end of the summer, it's claimed. John previously worked in the sales and retail department at Nintendo US arm and recently appeared with his former colleagues on the Kit and Krista podcast to share insight into the company's sales strategy. According to the former employee, Nintendo will definitely share plans to release Switch 2 before the end of summer during its upcoming Switch 2 Direct in April. They're going to want the system out before the end of summer. I would say at the start of summer, at the end of the school year, so you have kids talking about what they're excited for, he said. I think we'll see a June launch. I'm thinking maybe mid-June or a little bit later than that, but definitely before the end of the summer, that thing's coming out. There are good strategic reasons why that would be a part of the consideration. The former Nintendo employee was also asked about alleged retail leaks regarding Switch 2's release date and price, and dismissed the notion that retailers have any advanced knowledge of plans. Asked what retailers know about Switch 2, Sean replied, nothing. Certainly not the price. Almost certainly not any kind of launch date other than maybe a quarter. It always makes me laugh to see these articles like Walmart Canada saying the price is going to be this. Walmart Canada are the last people who are going to know. He continued, they don't have the information. There's no way even Target in the US would know anything. We know the launch date. That's probably when the retailers are going to know the launch date. Maybe a week or two in advance. I would imagine maybe March 27th, the retailers will find out a couple days in advance of the Nintendo Direct. Okay, so first let's unpack that retailer piece, because I do think that that ties into some of the conversations we've had around price and a potential launch time for this console. You probably remember like the Costco Canada leaks with the Nintendo Switch placeholder that suggested that it's probably at that $399 price point. That's a possibility. We're also seeing Nintendo do some interesting Mario Edition OLED bundles. Could be as a part of the celebration for Mario Day, but maybe they want a wider price gap than $350 to $399 for this new console, and that's just kind of how they're clearing out some of the OLED stock, because they might not keep the OLED on store shelves right next to their new console if it launches at $399. But regardless of all of that, it is possible that retailers are very much in the dark at this point. I don't claim to know the ins and outs of the retail chains and how they ultimately get their pre-order pages built and ready to go, but I would assume that the official information is disclosed to them at a much later date, like exactly what this former Nintendo of America employee is saying. Essentially, the week before the Direct, maybe they get the brief that, hey, you're gonna have to have your pre-orders go live at some point in the middle of the day on April 2nd. That's probably what's gonna happen. We're looking at a morning time Direct, probably a few hours after the Directs. The pre-orders will start to go live from retailers. At least that's what what I'm expecting. So they would have had to put together those web pages, hence they need some kind of advance notice. But I do tend to agree with the idea that you probably can't trust any kind of internal price listings or leaks you're seeing, just like that Best Buy rumor we saw floating around, where if you Googled Nintendo Switch 2 from Best Buy, it showed $349.99 US for the price point. I was not expecting the Switch 2 to be that price point. I don't think anybody else should expect it to be at that price point. That's literally the same price as the OLED. It will be higher, $399 plus, but that just kind of further backs up that theory that maybe we should discount some of these retail leaks and talks that we've seen online. And I tend to buy into that same thought process. That said, give Walmart Canada some credit where credit's due. They've leaked a lot of Nintendo Directs before they've happened, and it does seem like maybe on the back end, not from first party Nintendo, they're told these things. But I wouldn't be surprised if third-party games all get brand new listings that are coming to Nintendo Switch in Walmart Canada's gaming database or whatever, and maybe somebody's accurately, a little bit too accurately in my opinion, guessing the dates of certain of Nintendo events and things like that. But yeah, MSRPs of console price and the exact inside knowledge of launch plans, probably not. And I would also like to tie that into kind of some inside baseball on the YouTube end, because it has become apparent to me as well that a lot of these companies that are even releasing products for Nintendo Switch 2 don't actually know when the console is launching. Because, not going to name any names, but I've been in talks with accessory manufacturers back and forth that want to have some sponsorship videos ready to go right around the Switch 2 launch featuring their accessories for the console. And a lot of these brands are under the impression that Nintendo's going to have this thing somehow in our hands in April, because they're saying like, yeah, feature the accessories with the Nintendo Switch 2 actual hardware and talk about it right around the launch. We're expecting that to be in April. So it really just shows to me that a lot of these retail chains, whether you're producing products for Nintendo or not, you don't actually know what their plans are, because me, just from the outside looking in, not having any internal knowledge into Nintendo's inner plans other than reporting on them, I'm well aware that it's not going to be launching in April. They're not going to hold the Direct and turn around and do a launch right there afterwards, like a week or two after. If you really want to say they're going to do a quick presentation to launch turnaround the very tail end of the month in April, I guess is a small possibility. I am not expecting that fast of a turnaround personally, and I think it just goes to show that even Nintendo's partners, while they know the launch quarter, they really do not know Nintendo's exact plans until Nintendo reveals that to the public directly themselves. Now, I then want to talk about that end of June timeframe, or even just June timeframe in general. And I do tend to agree that actually the end of May and or June is the most likely time for the console to launch, in my personal opinion, but their reasoning as to why might be a little bit off. I think they might be kind of overstating the importance of school ground talk and kids basically talking about this thing at the end of the school year, and like that's the only way that word of mouth is going to get out for Switch 2 and all of the hype that people want to pick it up over the summertime. I don't think that Nintendo needs to launch their console around the beginning or end of a school year to have a successful launch. We're just kind of in a different age nowadays with how people communicate and stay up to date with each other, and I don't think that that really plays into whether or not Nintendo has a kind of a successful launch. And that said, I actually think May and or June timeframe is already big months for them. We saw them launch Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, their biggest blockbuster Zelda sequel ever, essentially, in the month of May, knowing that that's kind of a great time to bring out one of their big AAA first-party pieces of software. And I assume that May will be a big month for them again, and or June this time around, to launch their next-gen console hardware, which will no doubt launch with a big AAA first-party piece of software. So to then tie this all into previous leaks and rumors we've seen already take place around this console, you might remember Nate the Hate actually suggesting that the end of May and or beginning of June, or kind of just somewhere in that May-June timeline, in terms of the likelihood for some kind of launch to take place, or the final marketing event and then a launch. And we also know Nintendo's holding Nintendo Experience events all the way through April and May, and then there's an interesting gap in the middle of May, and it kicks back up in the very end of May and early June for like the Asian markets and things. And because Nintendo Switch itself did not launch simultaneously worldwide in every single region of the world, like South Korea, for example, it was actually out, I believe, in December of 2017 as opposed to March. It is conceivable that some of these later dates for Asian markets are going to just be for markets that don't actually have the console already in hand and available on retail shelves, meaning that end of May timeframe is actually a realistic possibility. And to tie that into what Nintendo did in terms of their history for Nintendo Switch 1, you might remember that we got the first look trailer at the end of October, we got the deep dive blowout in the middle of January, and the launch right at the beginning of March, which ultimately ended up being 50 days from when they gave us that blowout January event and revealed all the details of the hardware to when they turned around and launched it. That would put the Nintendo Switch 2 launch date, if we use that exact same timeline, right at May 22nd, which is also, funnily enough, a Thursday if we do 50 days from the Direct, which is April 2nd to May 22nd. And you probably also know that Nintendo does publish their first party software on Thursday. I'm not saying that's the date, but it does make sense on paper, and it's probably any time around that. Maybe the 15th, the Thursday before that, the 29th afterwards, or you have, June 5th, June 12th, June 19th, June 26th, all as prime candidates. I think it's coming out early summer. Anybody who thinks that it's going to be out like October, November, holiday season timeframe, I just think you're wrong. The reality is even if you're just looking at Nintendo's first party piece of software lineup, they're at a point now where past Xenoblade Chronicles X, Metroid Prime 4, and also Pokemon Legends ZA, like the picture is just not built out for us at all for Switch 1 software. So I definitely think we're getting this console soon. I think that a lot of Nintendo Switch 2 unannounced first and third party software will be there at this Direct, and then we're going to have a lot to look forward to as Nintendo fans. But let me know in the comments down below what you make of all of this and what you think the most likely launch month is for Nintendo Switch 2. Are you on board with this Nintendo of America former employees mindset that June makes the most sense and that you think that it's coming out potentially in the middle or end of the month? Do you like the month of May, maybe the 22nd, for example, and you think Nintendo actually does do that same 50-day gap from their big blowout presentation for the hardware to the ultimate console launch date? And what games are you most hoping to see at the Nintendo Switch 2 Focus Direct when it comes to some exciting new software that we should be able to expect around the launch window for this upcoming console generation for Nintendo? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.